she said. You don't know what you're doing. But the way her voice trembled told a different story. I remember the faint hum of the evening, the kind that sits between silence and confession. The room was small, dimly lit, a single lamp spilling warm light across her shoulders. She stood by the window, arms folded like she was trying to keep herself from saying something she shouldn't. I shouldn't have been there that late. Neither of us should. But I stayed anyway. She looked at me with that practiced calm, the kind people use when they're trying to hide how fast their heart is beating. I could see it, in the way her fingers brushed the edge of the curtain, restless, uncertain. Every movement she made seemed deliberate, but not controlled enough to hide the pull between us. Her perfume lingered in the air, something faint and warm, like jasmine left too long in sunlight. I could taste the distance between us, only a few feet, but charged enough to make every breath feel heavier. You should go, she murmured. I know, I said. Neither of us moved. It wasn't about what was said, it was about what wasn't. The silence between us had weight, texture. It pressed against the air. She turned to me then, eyes soft but guarded. 40, maybe 41, graceful, with a kind of beauty that didn't try to be seen but couldn't help it. Her hair fell loose around her shoulders, the kind that looked like it had once been tied back all day but had given up, like she had. I was 20-something, too young to know better, too old to pretend I didn't understand what was happening. I'd always told myself I admired her composure, her quiet confidence. But that night, admiration felt like a lie. What I felt was closer to gravity. She took a slow breath, like she was steadying herself. You don't know what this means, she said. Maybe not, I replied. But I know what it feels like. Her eyes met mine. And for a moment, everything stilled. The air between us was electric, not loud, not obvious, just charged enough that neither of us could pretend anymore. Her lips parted, maybe to argue, maybe to breathe. I didn't know. Her hand brushed mine, accidental, maybe. But it didn't feel accidental. It felt like a line being crossed, quietly, tenderly, without either of us saying a word. Her pulse jumped. I saw it in her throat. Her composure cracked just enough to reveal something raw underneath, something she didn't want me to see. Don't, she whispered, but her hand didn't move away. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. There was nothing left to explain, nothing left to define. Only the moment, too close, too fragile, too real. The rain started then, soft against the glass, rhythmic, like the world outside was listening too. The sound made the room feel smaller, more intimate. She turned her face slightly, eyes flicking toward the door, as if reminding herself there was still a way out. But she didn't take it. For the first time, I saw her without all the practiced distance, the mask of control slipping just enough to show the woman beneath. Not perfect, not untouchable, human. Her voice came again, quieter this time. You don't know what you're doing. And maybe she was right. Maybe I didn't. But as her hand trembled in mine, it was clear, she was the one who couldn't let go. The door creaked. A shadow moved just beyond it. And everything inside me stopped. The door never opened. Just a draft, a tease from the storm outside, but it was enough to make her pull her hand away like the moment had burned her. She turned her back to me, pretending to fix her hair, to smooth her dress. Pretending to breathe evenly again. I should have left then. But I didn't. Why do you always look at me like that? She asked softly, still facing the window. I didn't answer right away. I wasn't sure I could. I don't mean to, I said. It just happens. She laughed quietly, a tired, knowing sound. You're too young to mean it. The words stung more than they should have. Maybe because they weren't true. She'd been through more than she ever said aloud. Everyone knew her as composed, elegant, independent, but the quiet cracks showed if you looked long enough. The way she'd flinch when her phone buzzed, or how her eyes drifted off whenever someone mentioned his name, her ex-husband, gone 2 years now, but still everywhere in her life. And I was the one who noticed those things. The only one who did. It started simple. Her helping me with something at work, me staying late more often than I needed to. She'd talk about books, or the weather, or how silence wasn't always uncomfortable. And somewhere in those talks, something changed. Now, even when we said nothing, everything spoke. She stepped closer, brushing past me to grab something from the counter. Her shoulder grazed my arm, and I swear I felt the warmth long after she moved away. "People will talk," she said. "If they haven't already. I don't care. You should." There was something behind those words, a plea, almost. Not for me to leave, but for her to stay safe. I watched her as she poured herself a glass of water, her hand trembling just slightly. The lamplight hit her face in soft gold, highlighting every line that life had etched there, not flaws, but stories. "You think I'm scared of what people think?" I asked. Her eyes lifted to mine. "No," she said. "You're scared of what you might." I wanted to argue, but the truth sat too close. She was right. I didn't understand what this could cost her, her reputation, her calm, her carefully built world. I was just the one who made her forget it for a second. She set the glass down and stepped closer again, too close this time. The air between us felt tight, like it couldn't decide whether to hold us apart or pull us in. Her hand brushed my sleeve. "You should go," she whispered again. But her eyes didn't move from mine. "I will," I said, though neither of us believed it. The silence stretched, long, fragile, dangerous. Then she reached up and adjusted my collar, a simple gesture, nothing more. Except her fingers lingered. Long enough for both of us to feel the mistake. Long enough for neither of us to want to fix it. Outside, thunder rolled low and distant. Inside, her hand stayed on my chest, her breath close enough to warm my skin. She didn't pull away this time. The next morning felt heavier than it should have. The storm had passed, but its echoes stayed, in the air, in my chest, in every quiet second between us. She acted normal, or tried to. Coffee in hand, polite nod, the same rhythm as always. But her eyes wouldn't stay on mine for more than a breath. I told myself last night meant nothing. That it was just a charged moment in bad weather. But then she smiled, faint, nervous, and everything inside me disagreed. We were alone again, just like before. The sound of the rain dripping from the roof filled the silence. She was typing something, pretending to focus. I watched her hands, steady now, precise, graceful, and remembered how they'd felt when they weren't pretending to stay still. Her phone buzzed. She froze. A message from someone named Ethan. She turned the screen face down without reading it. Our eyes met for too long. "Old friend?" I asked. She didn't answer. "Don't," she said quietly. There was no anger in her voice. Just fear. I stepped closer before I could stop myself. "I'm not trying to, you are," she interrupted, voice soft but shaking. "And that's what scares me." I stopped, just a few feet away. My pulse was everywhere, in my hands, in my throat. She turned away, pretending to rearrange something on her desk. "People will notice," she said. "They already do. So, I can't be that woman again." The way she said it, again, carried more history than I was ready for. Then, before I could ask, the door creaked open. A friend from work, laughing, holding files, oblivious. Her hand shot out instinctively, brushing my arm, pushing me back a step, a warning in her touch. She greeted him calmly, voice light, like nothing was wrong. But her hand stayed there, pressed against me, unseen. The moment stretched like it wanted to snap. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. Her friend talked, something about schedules, deadlines. I didn't hear a word. I just watched her jaw tighten when his eyes flicked between us. He left, finally. The door clicked shut. Neither of us moved. "You see?" she whispered, pulling her hand back. "One wrong glance, and it all falls apart." I wanted to say I didn't care. That none of this, the whispers, the judgment, mattered. But looking at her, I knew it wasn't that simple. Her voice trembled. You don't know what you're doing. Maybe she was right. But when I stepped closer, so close that I could feel her breath against my cheek, she didn't move away. We stood there, inches apart, everything unsaid, everything dangerous between us. Her eyes flicked to my lips, then back up, searching, trembling. For a second, just one heartbeat, it almost happened. Then she whispered, barely audible, "Don't." But her body didn't step back. The night was too quiet. The kind of quiet that made every breath sound like a secret. She hadn't spoken to me all day. Not a word beyond the polite, professional kind. But when I walked into her house that evening, to drop off the files she'd forgotten, her expression said she'd been expecting me. "Thanks," she murmured, taking them from my hand. Her voice was calm, but her fingers trembled slightly. "I should have left then. I didn't." She turned away, setting the papers on the table. The light from the lamp caught the edge of her face, soft, thoughtful, tired. 40, yes, but somehow still radiant in a way that time only deepened. "Why are you avoiding me?" I asked. She didn't answer. Her shoulders lifted with a slow breath. "Because this shouldn't feel the way it does." "It's not wrong," I said quietly. "It's just different." She turned then, eyes locking onto mine. "Different?" she repeated, almost laughing, but the sound broke halfway. "You don't understand. You'll move on, find someone your age, and I'll just—" She stopped. Her voice cracked. I stepped closer. "And you'll just what?" Her eyes shimmered. "Remember this as a mistake." Something inside me snapped. "A mistake doesn't feel like this," I said, my voice lower now, unsteady. She took a step back. I followed. "Don't," she whispered. "Then tell me you don't want this," I said. "Tell me to go." Her lips parted, but no words came out. The air between us thickened, heavy with everything unsaid. I reached out, slow, cautious, brushing a strand of hair away from her face. She didn't move. Her breath caught, trembling just enough for me to feel it. "You shouldn't look at me like that," she said, her voice barely audible. "I can't help it." She exhaled shakily, the sound almost a sigh. My hand lingered by her cheek, and she leaned into it, just slightly, enough to undo both of us. "People will talk," she whispered. "Let them," I murmured. She closed her eyes, and for a moment we were suspended, the world outside forgotten. Then her phone buzzed on the counter, loud and sharp, cutting through the silence. She flinched. The screen lit up with a name I didn't recognize. Her hand moved fast, snatching it, silencing it, hiding it behind her back. But not fast enough. "Who is that?" I asked, voice low but tight. "It doesn't matter," she said. "It does to me." Her gaze met mine, defiant and afraid all at once. "You have no right to feel jealous." "Then stop giving me reasons to be." The words slipped out, raw, heavier than I meant. We stood there, close enough to feel the heat of each other's breath, the storm building again between us. Finally, she whispered, "You really don't know what you're doing." And I answered, "Maybe not. But neither do you." The knock on the door echoed again, sharper this time. She froze, her hand still clutching the phone behind her back. "Are you going to open it?" I whispered. She hesitated, then turned slowly, pulling the door open just enough for a sliver of hallway light to spill in. A man's voice, calm, older, filled the space. "You left your jacket in my car." My stomach twisted. She stepped halfway into the doorway, blocking me from view. "Thank you," she said softly, voice too careful. There was a pause, long enough for me to feel the tension humming through the walls. Then the sound of retreating footsteps. The door closed. She turned around. The silence that followed was louder than any argument could have been. "Who was that?" I asked. Her eyes didn't meet mine. "You don't want to know." I took a step closer anyway. "He's married, isn't he?" She laughed, but it wasn't real. "No. Worse." "Then who, my ex?" she said. "The one who said I'd never move on." Her hand trembled as she brushed past me, the scent of her perfume trailing in the air. He still checks on me sometimes. I let him think there's no one else. It stung, not because of jealousy, but because it made sense. Why? I asked quietly. She turned, her expression raw. Because it's easier than admitting I'm falling for someone I shouldn't. The words hit like a heartbeat in the dark. I stepped toward her before I could think. You mean that? Her eyes flicked to mine, then away. Don't make me say it again. The space between us pulsed. Her fingers brushed against my arm, accidentally, then didn't move. My pulse caught in my throat. Everything was simpler before you, she whispered. Now I can't even breathe right when you're near. I swallowed hard. Then stop pretending. Her lips parted, but instead of speaking, she stepped back, pressing her palm flat against her chest like she could slow her heartbeat. If I stop pretending, it'll destroy us both. I reached for her hand, gently, deliberately, and she didn't pull away. You're already shaking, I murmured. So are you. Her voice was barely a breath, but the honesty in it burned through the room. We stood like that, too close, too quiet, both knowing something had already shifted. Her eyes glistened as she whispered, You shouldn't have heard that. But I did, I said. She smiled, small, broken. Then you can't know it. I didn't answer. I just looked at her, the way her shoulders trembled, how her lips pressed together to hold back something dangerous. Finally, she whispered, If we do this, there's no going back. I stepped in, close enough for my breath to mix with hers. Then maybe we shouldn't go back. Her eyes softened, and she exhaled, a shaky, quiet surrender. But before either of us moved, she said something that changed everything again. He's still outside. The words froze us both, her voice trembling, my heartbeat wild, as a shadow crossed the window glass. And that was the moment we both knew, hiding wasn't an option anymore. Rain started tapping against the window, slow, deliberate, like the world was listening in. She hadn't moved since she'd whispered he's still outside. I could see her reflection in the glass, arms crossed, jaw trembling, eyes fixed on nothing. You don't have to be afraid, I said softly. Her voice cracked. You think this is fear? I stepped closer, stopping just behind her. Then what is it? She turned, and for the first time, she didn't look like she had an answer. Her face was pale, her lips parted slightly, and in the space between us, everything that had been building finally felt unbearable. You shouldn't be here, she whispered. I know. Then why aren't you leaving? Because every time I tell myself I should. I remember how it feels when you look at me like that. Her eyes flicked to mine, and for once, she didn't look away. I could see the struggle in her, the push and pull between wanting to step forward and needing to stay still. Do you know what you're doing? She asked, almost pleading. No, I admitted. But I know what I want. She inhaled sharply, the kind of breath that sounded like a decision about to break. I reached up slowly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. She didn't flinch this time. Her skin was warm beneath my fingertips, her eyes heavy with all the words she wouldn't say. You shouldn't make promises you can't keep, she murmured. I'm not promising, I said. I'm choosing. Something in her softened, not surrender, but recognition. The walls she kept up weren't gone, just thin enough now for the truth to slip through. She leaned closer, voice barely a whisper. And what if I let you? The question hung there, trembling in the air. I could feel her breath against my neck, smelled the faint trace of rain and her perfume. Then we both stop pretending, I said. The silence after that was fragile, either of us breathing too loudly, as if the wrong sound could break the spell. Her hand found mine. Not gently, tightly. Desperate. Human. Everything changes if we do this, she said. Everything already has. For a long second, she just looked at me, like she was memorizing the version of herself she knew would disappear after this moment. Then she stepped closer. Her forehead rested against mine. Say it, she whispered. I didn't hesitate. I'm not walking away. Her lips parted, not for words, but a shaky exhale that said everything she'd been holding back. And then the distance between us finally broke, not with a kiss, but with a silence that was louder than one. She closed her eyes, her voice trembling against my skin. You don't know what you've just done. Yeah, I said quietly, my heartbeat against hers. But now we both do. Outside, the rain fell harder, washing everything that came before away, leaving only this, the truth neither of us could unfeel. The morning light slipped through the curtains, soft and forgiving, the kind of light that made even mistakes look gentle. She sat on the edge of the couch, her hair still damp from the shower, a loose sweater hanging off her shoulder. I watched her trace the rim of her coffee mug like she was thinking of something she didn't want to say. You're quiet, I said. She gave a half smile. You're supposed to be gone by now. I was, I said. Then I realized I didn't want to be. Her eyes flicked up, tired but soft. You don't make this easy. Neither do you. A quiet laugh escaped her, barely there but real. It was the first sound that didn't feel like tension in days. The storm from last night had passed, but it left something behind, not guilt, not fear, just calm. She finally turned toward me. Do you even understand what this means? I nodded. It means we stop pretending it didn't happen. That we stop pretending we don't want this. Her hand froze midair, still holding the cup. People won't understand. They don't have to. She looked at me for a long moment, long enough that the silence became its own kind of answer. Then she put the mug down, crossed the room, and stood in front of me. Her fingers brushed mine, hesitant at first. Then she laced them together slowly, like she was testing the reality of it. Her voice softened. You're too young to know how messy this gets. I smiled a little. And you're too smart to still be here if you didn't want to be. She exhaled, the fight finally leaving her. The air between us wasn't heavy anymore, it was warm, lived in, real. When she leaned in, her forehead rested against mine, and the world outside the window, the judgment, the years, the noise, faded. I spent so long being careful, she whispered. But with you, I finished for her. You forget to be. She smiled, eyes still closed. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. We stayed like that for a while, no words, no rush, just quiet understanding. Her thumb traced small circles against my hand, grounding me, reminding me that this wasn't a dream or a mistake. It was something fragile but true, the kind of truth that doesn't need to shout to be felt. When she finally pulled back, she looked at me like she was seeing something new. Not the boy she tried to resist, but the man who stayed when leaving would have been easier. And I knew then, it wasn't about right or wrong anymore. It was about finally being seen. Her hand found mine again, fingers interlocking naturally this time. Stay, she said softly. I nodded. I wasn't planning on going anywhere. The clock ticked quietly, sunlight stretching across the floor, 2 lives caught in a pause that finally felt safe. And for the first time, either of us looked away. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next? Her eyes widened. Mine did too. And just like that, everything we were about to cross froze.